All right, thank you. All right, the title of this particular panel is, and we kind of queued it up a little bit in the last one, is Youth, Talent, and Work, Preparing the Next Generation for Jobs of Tomorrow. And I am going to ask my speakers to introduce themselves, and please, shh, thank you. You want to get started?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Balaji Ganapati. I'm with Tata Consultancy Services. We're an information technology major, $28 billion in revenue, 600,000 people across 50 countries. And I think thinking about this topic, just to preface, I believe that young people are not the future, they are the present. Some of us here on the panel and the room are the past. And I think understanding their excitement, their opportunities, and empowering that is something that's really critical for businesses to thrive. Look forward to sharing
Great.
more as we unpack this.
Thank you, Balaji. All right, Michelle, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Armstrong. I'm head of philanthropy at Ares Management Corporation, which is a leading alternative investment manager here in New York, based in New York, but with offices globally. And I not only head our philanthropy team, but I also am the executive director of the Ares Charitable Foundation, which focuses on helping people to prepare and reskill for the world of work, as well as helping people to pursue entrepreneurship and also building people's skills around personal finance. Delighted to be with the team this morning.
All right, and I'm still Lauren Young. If you were here at the last panel, I'm the moderator again. Chaeli?
Hi, I'm Chaeli Mycroft. I am a adventurer, author, activist. I'm one of the founders of and Chaeli Foundation here in the US. And essentially, I just say yes to things and then figure out how to do them.
That's the way to roll.
Yeah.
Just figure it out. Wing it, like I am here today, like we all are. Thank you for being here. And the people who are in the back, if you're not quiet, I'm going to come and yell at you. I am a Jewish mother, so watch out, everybody. You can just go out in the hallway if you want to chit-chat. I understand. All right, so we're going to be talking, we talked a little bit about this in the last panel about youth, but obviously there are so many things impacting the future and what it means for the kids of today. I am the mother of 3 boys. I have a son who's 19, a son who is 21, and a son who's 23. They are making their way out into the world right now, and it is challenging. How many people have are like parents, young kids? All right, so yeah, you feel me. Climate change, innovative technologies such as AI, the new standards of equity in the workplace are all causing seismic shifts. And in this period of disruption, transition, how can business leaders effectively prepare and reskill the current workforce? You want to get started with that, Michelle?
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, it's very important to pay attention to the geopolitical circumstances and context, to be aware of what's happening globally. I think you have to be very much apprised of what's happening when it comes to current affairs, understanding what effects and what challenges may be emerging as a result of how the world is evolving, but to also look at those challenges as opportunities. And I think a big part of that means also thinking about, for me in particular, coming from the philanthropy perspective, how do you leverage philanthropy and this idea of doing good as a way to help effectively prepare people, including young people, for the world of work and for the future of the world, really. I think a big part of that also requires paying careful attention to what workers not only need, but also what they want, and giving validation and giving value to their voice, so that as we're thinking about the appropriate kinds of training mechanisms to establish, that we are attentive to what workers and individuals who are about to enter the workforce have to say. And I'll add lastly that I think there's a lot of focus on preparing people with the tactical and the operational skills that are necessary to get the job done, but there should be attention paid also to that ongoing soft skilling. How do you prepare people to communicate effectively, to work collaboratively with one another, to lead with empathy? And I think that when you do that, you also are creating the safe space for individuals to bring their complete and authentic selves to the workplace. And I think that that kind of training is imperative for ensuring that we have young people who are ready for the world of work going forward.
Maybe my mic is off, but here, thanks. Chaeli, can you talk a little bit about training and upskilling, if you will, and the work that you're doing in that area?
Yeah. So I think as a starting point, it's not so much about upskilling, it's about recognizing skill in the first place. I think so I'm a very obviously severely disabled person. Hi. Hi. I'm also a very skilled person. I have my master's in human rights law. I have inherent disruptive skills as a disabled person. I exist in a world that is not made for me. So I can come into a room and have that be a beautiful, safe space. But I think it's important to recognize that I'm coming from a world that's unwelcoming, and recognizing that disabled people are skilled in so many ways that are just a part of existing as a disabled person. Logistics. Ask any disabled person to make a plan. We have 14 of them. You hire disabled people, you get better productivity, you get more morale in your staff. There's so much innovation inherently in disabledness that's untapped by businesses, by governments, by everybody. And I think what is one of the most beautiful things about disability and living a disabled life is that we challenge those perceptions every day. So yes, we need to support disabled people and young people to gain skills to be in the workplace and to be positive contributors. But we can't do that if people are not seeing us in the first place. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Thank you. Now, if you look at it from a future of work perspective, there are very significant trends that are happening in the world today. Work is not organized around skills. In today's world, work is organized around purpose. If you look at it, it started with the social justice movements and the youth uprising around the world, but it has crystallized into this larger movement of the workplace and the employees. If you look at where employees are placing the most trust, as the Edelman barometer is indicating, it's highest in companies and their own employer. So finding purpose at work is something that's not a nice to do. That is going to be a pivotal part of your business model if you want to thrive as an organization. And I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. Everybody wants to work towards something that's meaningful, something that you can devote your passion to. So I think we have to think about the youth talent and work in terms of how we are messaging this and the labels that we use, right? It's easy to talk about it as green skills and clean skills and whatnot, but can you demystify it to the audience who's going to participate in this and talk about the kind of plethora of opportunities that exist? Within an organization, you can look at it in terms of what journey at a personal level is it going to help you achieve by gaining new skills on top of existing skills that you already have that are relevant. Yes, 60% of skills are going to change in terms of existing workforce in the next 3 to 5 years, but 40% are not, which means that augmenting existing skills with new skills is the pathway for upskilling and reskilling within organizations. And if we can channel that towards purposeful outcomes, whether it is energy transition or climate action or sustainability, demystify it and talk about it in terms of what you can achieve for countries, communities, and the world, right? And that easily translates when you look at the future workforce, because you go and talk to any young person in a school environment or a higher education environment, the moment you talk about P&L and skills, they tune off. You talk about what difference you can
I
make.
just got sleepy when you said P&L.
Yeah, and you talk about what difference you can make in life with, your talent. They're immediately excited. So I think from a future workforce perspective, giving and organizing education in a way where industry and others can participate to make it more activity-based, project-based, more real-world based is the way to go. And that's where we are seeing the greatest return. So 600,000 employees, we invest 40 million hours of learning each year to upskill them. So that's why, from the 60s to today, we are very resilient as an organization, right? The skills, that's what we call that there are only legacy skills, not legacy people, right? So you follow people along, you invest in them. And in terms of the future workforce, it is about working with the education system, not just from a pipeline perspective. Okay, it's easy as an employer, as a business leader to say that I'm going to work with the last 2 years of education and those entry points to my workforce. We owe it to ourselves to invest in middle school, early education, and invest in bringing experiential learning to those constituents, and then look at it from an equity lens of who are you not reaching, and work on that. And a few examples I'm happy to share later.
Great, thank you. Can you, is this mic on? I can't really, or maybe they're just playing with it? Okay. I can, great, all right, thank you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about empowerment. Empowerment of the disabled community, and the language and the terminology that we should be using.
Okay, I don't have enough time to talk about the terminology. It's like a decade-long conversation to have about how we talk about disabledness. So people should look into it. What I will say about terminology is disability is a very unique experience. So I think you need to ask each disabled person how they would like to be referred to and use those words. So my terminology, I use disabled person, I use differently abled. I am leaning more towards identity first language at this point, because it focuses more on being proud of disabledness and it being a part of my life. I'm not trying to separate from that, and that's a whole journey of empowerment in itself, right? And
That's why I asked the
Yeah.
question. Because if by identifying and
Yeah.
putting language around
Yeah.
it, that's the first step.
totally. And I think with that journey, I think it's important to. I think there's a huge focus on empowering disabled people as individuals, and that's super important. I also think that the way that the world approaches disability is too narrow-minded. We need to. Hi. We need to see that the disabled community is not just disabled people. I hold the view that my disability is mine because it lives in my body, but it also is shared with my mom because she has an experience of my disability. My sister has an experience of my disability. My friends have an experience of my disability. And so we need to empower people at all of those different levels. And by empowering one disabled person, it's actually economically smart because my mom always talks about like when we check, you get 2 for the price of 1. But it's like if you empower me, it gives an opportunity to my family members who would probably be spending their time at home supporting me. They can go out and be in the economy. They can go out and be productive members of society because I'm being a productive member of society. And I think there isn't enough sort of big picture thinking when it comes to supporting disabled people and what we can bring instead of looking at it as like a burden situation. What is it costing to include disabled people rather than what are we bringing? What are you gaining?
Oh my gosh, time is flying by, and I realized I just saw, and I apologize. We went maybe a little bit off of the topic that was the topic of the panel, but hopefully it's been interesting to all of you so far. The impacts of climate change and digital divide are among the top drivers in disparities in the economic opportunities around the globe. How can your organizations center equity in the workforce shifts that will take place over the next decade and beyond, Michelle?
Yeah, I will speak to this from a philanthropy perspective in particular, and how you can harness, I think, the power of philanthropy as a mechanism to actually be able to test and to iterate on solutions when it comes to, for example, equipping the green workforce and folks to enter the green economy. We in particular at Aries Management and through the Aries Charitable Foundation have an initiative called CREST, which stands for Climate Resilient Employees for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And we're working in partnership with both Jobs for the Future and World Resources Institute to be able to prepare and to reskill individuals to enter the green jobs, as well as to ensure that best practices are stood up in micro, small, and medium enterprises in India to help those organizations withstand the shocks of climate change. I bring this up to say that for us, when we looked at the possibility of doing this initiative, which we launched last year in coincidence with Earth Day, we didn't see anybody else focused at that time on getting people ready for green jobs. We saw money that was coming down the pike through legislation that was passed here in the U.S. for infrastructure projects, for example. But what about getting people ready to actually be successful and enter those jobs and to be able to take them on and to fulfill the requirements of them? We saw the focus was really on decarbonization, on adaptation, but we thought this is an opportunity for us to be a bellwether in this space and to do something new and to this time look at climate change through the lens of workforce readiness. So I just read an article 2 days ago from the National Skills Coalition that talked about the fact that they are now looking at the fact that there will be, I think it's like 9 million jobs, infrastructure industry jobs, over the next 5 years, and the need to get people skilled up to take those jobs. So we like to think of ourselves as having been a bellwether in this space, but beyond that, I think the important lesson learned is that, again, philanthropy can be harnessed in ways to help drive labor solutions, and it creates this space in which you can actually test and pilot ideas, determine what is and what isn't working, and then be able to take models to scale. So that, I think, is also something that's appealing to young people who are looking not just to do the status quo, but are looking for an opportunity to innovate and to join organizations that are innovative when they think about how they train and prepare people for the world of work.
How are you training the young people in your company to do good, to have purpose, and to probably make you a little money on the side too?
I think being a purpose-driven organization itself is a talent magnet for people who are predisposed to wanting to work in that manner. But investing in them early on and continuing that over a period of their entire career is key. So I'll talk less about that. Like I said, there are systems in place to address entry-level competency gaps, personal growth journeys, technology skills, management skills, all of that is there. But what is most important is the power of partnerships to look at place-based opportunities. Because when you talk about, again, labels like green economy, these are jobs that are relevant to certain parts of certain countries in the world. And how do you create pathways today where pathways don't exist? How do you create equitable pathways so that if you have new jobs being created in a certain part of, you gave an example of India, a lot of investment is going into certain parts of the country where people from urban communities would easily understand this and be able to apply for those jobs. But what are you doing to create equity? And that is where the role of private sector to work with governments and with other organizations in a consortium manner and with nonprofit organizations is key. And that is where we are seeing the greatest impact, because at the entry level, when you say green economy, what are green skills? There's very little more than academic skills that people are learning in school today, in college today, right? So how do you bridge that gap of sector-specific, domain-specific needs and put finishing schools around that? And that's the work that we're doing. We're working in all 36 states in India. We're working in Latin America. And we're seeing great success in this model. But to my earlier point about working with the future of our planet, with the youth, I think that is where the opportunity for purpose-driven work is the most, right? So replicating what you do within the organization and demystifying that. What does digital transformation mean? Is from a purpose perspective. If you go to rural, any part of the world, we do work in Mexico, in Canada, in Philippines, in Brazil, in Indonesia, in Australia, and US. And I mean, I can talk about it in the indigenous community context.
We don't have enough time.
But if you look at the common factor across all of those, if you give people skills to be on a journey from moving from consumers to creators, right? And help them understand how to define a problem in their community, how to come together as a team, how to develop the design thinking skills, how to understand new technologies, apply that, and come up with solutions. Like I said, youth are not the future, they are the present. They come up with very smart, very ingenious ideas, and bringing more of that to the fore and giving them platforms so that they are able to connect to industry, connect to new opportunities in the real world is where we are seeing the greatest impact. We are reaching about 250,000 students around the world working with school systems and NGOs. I'm very, very optimistic because wherever you go around the world, you put the problem or ask the young kids to define the problem, they are very conversant about this.
Yep, thank you. Chaeli, I wanted to ask you to give an example of something you're working on that gives you hope that we can collectively create a strong future of work for the next generation. What are you excited about right now?
So as an activist, I see myself as a relentless optimist. And it doesn't matter how bad things are, it can always be better, and we can always do more. I think one thing that's exciting to me in our work, so many things, but one, I'll pick one. I think it's the long game. So we have an inclusive preschool, and we have kids learning together from each other, disabled and non-disabled learning together, and I really think that is the basis of creating a strong society, creating a strong workforce, an inclusive, equitable workforce is starting when kids don't question what the differences are. Start with people when they're 3 years old. Teach them that inclusion is standard, and when they go into spaces, when they grow up as non-inclusive spaces, they're activists in themselves. And I think when you create that mindset and worldview, when kids are 3 years old, I think there are really, really powerful things that can happen in the decades following that when they end up in positions of decision making and leading world companies and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are you working on, Michelle, that you're excited about? What gives you hope and makes you think that the world's going to be a better place for the next generation?
You know, I know there's been a tremendous focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, particularly within the corporate space over the past few years. What I'm excited about is the work that we're doing at Aries, but also the work that I see across multiple organizations, corporations around social good, and the idea of harnessing the power of philanthropy to be able to really demonstrate DEI in action. And so, you know, we think about how we, for example, award grants to our Aries Charitable Foundation. Everything that we do has a dimension of diversity that's built into it. And so I'm excited about the work that we're doing in that space and the way that we're helping to exemplify and to demonstrate our firm's commitment to DEI through what it is that we support philanthropically. And I think that a lot of organizations are starting to make that connection, and that in itself is exciting in this space.
Well, I'm excited because we are out of time, but I'm also so thankful for all of you and your interesting opinions, your thoughts, and your commitment to purpose. Can we have a round of applause for this panel?